Imagine this. Tina Turner is ready to enter the stage as a boisterous audience waits. Sequins flashing beneath the lights, her shoes hitting the floor like war drums. However, there is a list of names behind the scenes that chills her to the bone. She never spoke in public. She was not required to. Her quiet was more incisive than most people's cries. One thing, however, was clear to those who really knew her. She didn't want to learn the names of 6 musicians who went too far. And Tina Turner's hatred for someone wasn't a fleeting resentment, rather, it was war. Ike Turner, the guy who began as her companion and turned into her nightmare, was the first name on that list. After finding her, he destroyed her. Ike Turner attempted to take ownership of Tina's career, not merely mold it. Promise, soul, rhythm, and unadulterated fire were the foundations of their collaboration. However, the harmony was horror behind closed doors. Fear, control, and abuse. He controlled her every action, her finances, and her clothes. He hushed her, humiliated her, and beat her. He used music as a weapon and love as a leash. The world saw a formidable pair. Tina's life was a nightmare, complete with sequins and high heels. He forced her to smile through shattered ribs and sang through bruises. No one else would desire her, he assured her. She would not be believed by anybody else. And she believed him for a while. Tina, however, did not shatter. She took off running. She sneaked away from the empire he created on her, suffering one night in 1976, barefoot, bruised, and carrying just 36 cents and a credit card from a petrol station. She ate from vending machines, slept in hotels, and gradually rebuilt herself. Voice by voice. She regained her power when she eventually revealed what he had done to the world, not out of sympathy. For years, she would not mention his name. When she did, it was with a blade of truth rather than resentment. And the myth came to an end because of how deeply the reality pierced. Ike Turner was the prison from which she escaped, not merely a villain in her tale. Her next blacklisted name? She used to revere a legend. Till he made fun of her suffering? Bowie, David. It was intended to be a clash of creativity. One stage, 2 icons. The power of electric chemistry is irresistible. However, Tina never forgot the boundary that Bowie violated during a late-night party in her early 18s. It's laughing, loud, and high. As he joked about the business, celebrity, and then her, a throng gathered around him. Character development, he said, referring to her history with Ike. There was silence in the room. Tina stopped. Her whole body stiffened. She gave a grin, but it was a scream-hiding smile. He attempted to dismiss it. I think I'm pretty. I'm gifted and in good health. I can support everyone, regardless of their race or background. Said he didn't intend any harm and it was simply a joke. However, Tina did not laugh at abuse or joke about suffering. And she had no place in her life for someone who laughed at her ability to survive. From then on, the chance was gone and the adoration broke. Because Tina believed that scars were holy and that making fun of them was never acceptable, she never collaborated with him again, not even when producers or fans implored. A lady she had previously referred to as a sister then appeared, but ego caused friendliness to degenerate into competition. Both queens are Aretha Franklin. Both are ferocious. However, behind the spotlights and sequins, a conflict raged behind the crowns. As Tina gained influence in the late 16s, Aretha saw a danger. Without sparks, it would be impossible for 2 giants of soul music to coexist. People in the industry recalled a strain. 2 divas were scheduled on the same award shows, but they just watched and never spoke. She yells, sing, Aretha reportedly instructed a producer. That statement turned into a legend and caused a rift between them. Tina felt and heard it, but she never retaliated in the media. Rather, she ignited the stage with flames. Every applause was her response, and every performance was her counterargument. Over time, the stress increased. Seldom did they meet, and when they did, it was cold masquerading as grace. 2 queens who refused to bow, no words, no smiles. Without hesitating, Tina turned down Aretha's offer of a well-known duet in 1983. Silence, no controversy, no shadow. Tina Turner did not play pretend. She also didn't dispute when someone questioned her value. She lived longer. A pop star then attempted, and almost succeeded, to steal her thunder. Madonna. The mid-18s saw Madonna's widespread popularity. Shock-driven, sensual, and bold. Critics also said that she was mimicking Tina when she performed in leather, with wild hair and choreographed flames. Even though Tina detested the lack of respect, she didn't mind the motivation. She cleared the path for women to take charge of the stage, but rather than being honored, she was dismissed. Madonna regarded previous artists as outdated in interviews. Tina, who was at the top of the charts and in her 40s at the time, took it personally. She had escaped trauma by clawing her way out. She started again and reimagined what it meant to be a woman in rock. To be deemed irrelevant? Erasure, not shadow, was what it was. She didn't have to respond, she let private dancers' success speak for itself. The coldness persisted even though the charts shouted what she never spoke aloud. Megastars in dresses and jewels, they met at a banquet in 1992 and didn't speak to one another. Don't nod. Just stillness, no grin. More painful than a headline, that is. Tina believed that respect was a must. And the door permanently closed when Madonna refused to offer it. Then there was Phil Spector, the guy who abandoned her after promising to help her. Tina was previously said to be the only female voice strong enough for rock by the Wall of Sound producer. It was a promise accompanied praise. Time in the studio, artistic authority, something enormous. Trusted him. Because Phil Spector was a kingmaker as well as a producer. However, he disappeared when it was time to record. No reason, no phone call. Instead, he went with Ronnie Spector. Tina learned about it via industry rumors. No apology, no explanation. Everything fell apart in an instant after she had reorganized her schedule, practiced for weeks, and honed her voice like a weapon poised to pierce the speakers. The quiet that followed the rejection was just as humiliating to her as the rejection itself. That quiet was the biggest insult of all in a noisy business. She didn't mention him again. In subsequent interviews, she didn't snap or shout in response to questions about Spector. Instead, she remained silent. The type that makes a room go dark. The type that leaves wounds raw and discussions abruptly ending. Because treachery was not only personal in Tina's world, but also professional. Spector had also gone too far. And lastly, Elton John, the band that made her patience run the gamut. At first, it seemed as if two icons who were both unstoppable and bigger than life were a match made in musical heaven. Elton and Tina, however, were a tempest waiting to happen behind the scenes, with lightning in every glance and thunder in every remark. Rehearsals for a proposed TV special that aimed to bring together two periods of showmanship marked the beginning of their rivalry in the late 18th century. However, the result was far from harmonious. Tina was driven, demanding, and not content to be mediocre. Each stride has to be precise, each tone purposeful. Known for his exuberance and meticulousness, Elton disliked being told what to do. He lost his temper when Tina reprimanded him for being unprepared. Referred to her as impossible. Alleged that she behaved like a general. There was silence in the room. Then, hours of yelling, smashed doors, and one damaged microphone stand ensued. They barely made it through the performance. They both grinned on stage, but they never looked at each other. Later on, Elton acknowledged that the conflict with Tina was explosive. Although Tina never made any public remarks, her quiet was sufficient. According to those close to her, she thought he was gifted but exhausting. Brittle yet brilliant. A guy who preferred the lights above the music, the kind of partner who confused theatrics for soul and loudness for depth. Tina's avoidance of sharing a stage with someone was a protective measure rather than an act of vanity. Furthermore, the altercation with Elton was just too memorable, too loud, and too flaming to ignore. A survivor was not all that Tina Turner was. She looked stunning on high heels. She ended fights, but she didn't cause them. Silently, brutally, and without regret. Even though these 6 names aren't mentioned in the liner notes, they influenced the wall she created, the stage she controlled, and the stillness she selected. They served as more than simply competitors, they served as reminders of her suffering, betrayal, and the obstacles she had to overcome. She danced around the shadows of those she would never forgive, while the rest of the world danced to her melodies. She only donned armor of forgiveness when it was appropriate for her, and she left certain wounds exposed. As a caution, certain resentments don't go away, instead, they fuel and burn. Tina, too? She never turned to face the fire again. She strolled right through them without being burnt.